Welcome back to Shok's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today I'm going to be talking about my experiences with learning and practicing OBEs or out of body experiences, or in other terms, shifting data streams, like Tom Campbell likes to say. But before we get into all that, I really wanted to celebrate today because today marks 1 year of Shok's Talks. And if you look at my YouTube channel, it'll look like I've been on here longer because I posted one video 13 years before I started this of like an open mic performance, but I only started making content a year ago. So it's been really, really fun, just a really cool learning experience, something that I can just play around with in my free time and something that kind of keeps me motivated to pursue my own independent learning when it comes to anomalous phenomena, magic, UFOs, UAP, aliens, angels, and all kinds of other things that just make life a whole lot more interesting. So, I got this little cake today. I'm going to light a candle. And instead of making a wish for myself, what I would like to do today is allow you to make a wish, and whoever wishes on this candle, it is my intention that in alignment with your highest good, the good of all, this wish comes true for you. So when I blow out this candle, your wish is granted. Yay! Thank you so much for celebrating with me. Thanks for being here, and thanks to everyone who's subscribed to the channel and just supported me in all the different ways, like just indulging me in this by listening, watching, sharing, giving me feedback, commenting. People have given me gifts. It's just been super fun, and I really love it. So, like I said, I want to talk about OBEs today. But OBE is kind of a misleading term in a way because the more I've learned and the more I've experienced for myself, what I've come to find out is that we are consciousness living in a reality frame that we call life. And this reality frame could be thought of as a subset of a larger reality. And this is all very conceptual, but the more you dig into your own magical practice or meditation practice or OBE practice, or the more you read and research about other people's experiences, or just dig into any kind of anomalous studies, you'll probably come to some similar conclusion. And while many different people have different ways of describing reality, this is the way that I prefer. It's to think of us as in different reality frames or almost like a virtual space. So when we're here in our physical bodies, we are still existing beyond these physical bodies, and from this place, we have access to other reality frames. So, when I first started getting into all this, I was really especially interested in those people who can have what they call out of body experiences, which is like floating out of your body and looking back and seeing your own body or seeing the reality that you're in and being able to explore it in a more limitless way. Instead of having to walk around, you could fly around. Instead of being restricted to places that you can only get to with your body, you could actually travel all the way around the world in an instant, or you could go under the ocean and explore without being harmed because you're out of body, so to speak. But the more I've learned, the more I've come to understand that this skill, like so many other psi skills, is really just a matter of accessing data from the data stream that is reality. So, that particular flavor of accessing data is what people called out of body because so many different people had that same experience of looking back and seeing their own bodies. And for many years, the people that were practicing this and learning this were also seeing like a golden cord or some kind of almost like an umbilical cord that always kept them connected to their body. And people would get scared if they didn't see it, or they would be afraid that it could snap or break. And no matter how far away they went, that cord would always be there. But as time has gone on and this practice has expanded out and more people are doing it, there's been a lot of changes. There's not always a golden cord. You don't always see your own body when you look back. And you're not just limited to exploring this reality, you can explore all kinds of other reality frames. So I learned this because I read a bunch of books about it and I listened to a bunch of podcasts and watched YouTube videos and spoke with people who have had these experiences. And I want to share with you today some of my own experiences and the way that I'm starting to see it all. But what I really want to let you know is that if you're interested in any of this, there are so many different ways to dip your toes into the water and to start exploring what Tom Campbell calls the LCS, or the larger consciousness system. And you might ask yourself, well, why would I want to do that? Like, I'm already busy and I have enough other stuff going on. What's the point, you know? And it's really not for everyone. You don't have to do it, obviously, but if you are into it, I would say it's a lot like, for me at least, going to visit a beautiful place in nature. So, if you're one of those people who loves nature, you know what I'm talking about. You go out into the forest, you maybe get to put your bare feet on the ground, and you take a deep breath in and you start filling your lungs with all of this life and these gorgeous smells of moss and dirt and leaf and clean, fresh air. Or you get to visit a beautiful waterfall somewhere and the sun is sparkling off the moving water and mist is floating through the air and you just feel so alive and so refreshed. It's a way of gaining some perspective and remembering in a way where you came from. Going back to nature is like connecting with the planet, and it's refreshing and rejuvenating because it's a change of scenery from the lives that we usually live day to day. For most of us who are confined to, the capitalistic society where we really have to work every day just to be able to live on this planet and to be able to put a roof over our heads and have food every day. Often we're stuck in these tiny boxes and we're going through the motions, doing a lot of things that may not be our passion. And for those of us that are lucky to do things that we love, I mean, that's awesome, but even that comes with challenges, and it's not the same as just being out in the open, free, fresh air. You know what I mean? So for me, going and visiting the larger consciousness system, or expanding even further beyond this physical matter reality, is like the next level of that sensation of visiting nature. It's this way to really feel the expansiveness of my soul and my eternal being and my self beyond this body and this life. And this is what all of the ancient yogis were teaching through meditation practices, and what so many other spiritual traditions are helping to facilitate, is that ability to expand beyond this current iteration of yourself into a larger reality. And not only that, but you can bring back knowledge, you can bring back information that actually can impact your more kind of confined and condensed version of yourself. So let me go back in time a little bit. I've talked to you all before a little bit about my background, but basically I was raised on a yoga ashram. So my parents were into yoga before I was born. I was given a Sanskrit name at birth because my mom kind of heard it spoken to her at the time of my birth. They didn't have a plan for my name, but when my dad asked her, she said her name is Shakti. So that was already a very cosmic, beautiful beginning to my story. And I was blessed to be able to learn meditation and start practicing yoga at the age of 5. And then, I went through all kinds of other experiences. I integrated into mainstream reality. I became more normal because I was desperately seeking normalness. I wanted to be like everyone else. I felt like I just wanted, it's like the Little Mermaid, like, I want to be where the people are. Like, I just felt like I want to be doing stuff with everybody and like feeling normal, and that's what's cool. And so I really went hard in that direction. And then I got really swept up in a kind of, in the typical materialistic lifestyle mindset of wanting to succeed and achieve on a material level. And And I was super naive also. And I was studying acting for a really long time. And so my path was like trying to become an actor, which obviously is kind of like trying to win the lottery. Like to really become a successful actor is not easy. And even though I had some success early on, just in my tiny little pools that I was in, the bigger pools I entered into, the less success I had and the more heartbroken I became. And then I was just going through all these different things after college, and I kind of fell off the deep end into this deep depression and sort of like victim mentality where I lost track of all of my tools from early in life, and I just started diving into like this story in my mind that my pain was greater than everyone else's and my suffering was greater than everyone else's, and life owed me stuff that it wasn't delivering, and I felt so miserable. And then I kind of fell into like a circle of friends who were in a similar energetic and mental space, and we were all using unhealthy coping mechanisms, which you can use your imagination to expand on. But needless to say, I hit a kind of rock bottom, and it was really bad. And during that time, I had kind of a dark night of the soul, and I also went through a lot of anomalous experiences and anomalous traumas. I also learned a lot, and I also got back in touch with my spirituality. So, this is a super nutshell version, and there's a lot of gnarly details in there, but I ended up having to move home for a couple years as an adult. Um, Thankfully, my parents are very loving and supportive, and they were willing to help me sort of get back into health and get back on my feet and get back up and out into reality. And during that time, I did yoga teacher training. I got deeper into my yoga, deeper into my meditation, and I really started learning as much as I could and sponging up everything that I could get my hands on when it came to how to like shift your vibration and manifest a better reality. So, I was getting into all of the law of attraction stuff, all of the Abraham Hicks channeling. I was listening to and reading Eckhart Tolle. I was working with pain body meditations. I was working with Buddhist meditation practices. Um, I was talking to people who channeled aliens or were in connection with aliens or felt that they came from some kind of alien heritage. I was working with different healers and energy healers, and I was just sort of deep diving into the internet rabbit holes and sponging up everything I could find that related to my particular experience and traumas, and trying to carve a path forward for myself. And it really worked. So this is where tip and tool number one comes in, which is follow your heart, follow your instinct, use your head, and read, watch, and listen. So this is all about, finding your own way forward. Each of us is here with a completely unique blueprint in terms of what brought us into reality and what we brought with us and the circumstances that we came up in. So, because of that, there's never going to be one path that is perfect for everyone. So, this is why a lot of like cult mentalities or religious mentalities have kind of gone out of style in recent times, because we all understand that we're each individuals and we each need to find our own way. But what's cool is that so many different traditions have been presented, and now we have the internet and everything is available to everyone, so we can kind of pick and choose and piece together our own path when it comes to how to optimize our experience in this reality, how to learn and grow and feel more joy, and maybe even manifest more abundance or create deeper relationships or heal trauma, heal disease, heal emotional wounds, and all the rest of the goals that we might have as people on the earth. So for me, just following my instincts and kind of letting my curiosity guide me, and also some people might call it actual guides or helpers. There were always these little whispers on the wind, these little nudges that were pointing me in the right direction. Like a book would light up on a shelf at, the bookstore, and I would just see it, and that would be the one. And I would start looking through it, and I would realize, oh, yeah, there's something here for me. or I would just come across a channel that had meaning for me, and I would start following that person and listening to their wisdom and their experience. So I was kind of just like swimming through the void in a way. It's like this ocean of consciousness, just kind of trying to find my path and picking up all these little breadcrumbs along the way. And then it really comes down to discipline and the application of these tools. So once you start sponging up the knowledge and learning everything you need to learn for your particular path, then you really have to apply yourself and you have to experiment and play. And that's the really fun part. So I got into like trying out all these different techniques, and some of them really stuck with me and they're things that I still use to this day. Others I kind of dropped them and let them go. But most of the time, what I found is that in every school of thought, every master, every teacher has something for me, but they don't have everything for me, and I don't love everything that they have to offer usually. So it's really about just picking up what's good and letting go of the rest of it. That's what really worked for me. So I was kind of on my way up and out, but I was still clinging really, really intensely to this dream and this goal that I had of actualizing a love relationship with this very one specific person. And he was someone who represented everything to me. Some people call this a twin flame connection because it feels so much more intense than any other love, but I was just absolutely obsessed, and I felt it on a very deep spiritual level, not just on a surface level. And we had kind of had like a stop start kind of pattern in the past and never really had our chance. So I was really obsessed with like pulling myself through all of this healing so that I could go out back into reality and have a chance to be with him. So looking back on it, what I was really doing, unfortunately, and I hate to admit it, but it's true, is I was projecting a whole lot onto this one person and expecting him to be everything for me and the kind of solution to all of my life problems. And I was also trying to assert my will in reality in a way that was like counter to the flow in a way. So it all ended up being good and what was meant to be, but it was a very painful path because I was trying to force something, and then it blew up in my face in a really painful and scary way. And then I was back at a new rock bottom. I was back not exactly where I started because I had managed to get myself up and out, back, out of my parents' house, back into reality, but I was down to nothing again. I had about $500 to my name. I had a suitcase full of stuff, and I landed in a new place, and I went to visit a friend for her wedding, and I just thought, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I started staying in a room in this house that she had at the time, and I really had no direction and no plan forward, but I really just at that point had to surrender because I knew that I was out of ideas at this point. So that was like a moment where I had to really just like listen to the universe and take one tiny step at a time. So it was like get a job, a very simple job, start making some money, start, finding a little more stability in this new place that you're in. And little by little, these little sparkles of opportunity started coming my way. And there were so many moments along the way where I resisted that opportunity and I was trying to push it away because I just wasn't used to things going my way and I was feeling so emotionally devastated. And I was also dealing with like new levels of trauma because of what I had just gone through. So it's almost like I said, back to square one. But little by little, these opportunities came, and I was smart enough to take them. A lot of that is because of the encouragement of people who loved me, who were pushing me, like my mom or different people saying, "Go do this, go ahead, do that. Don't be dumb. Just try something different." And like, thank goddess, I was able to listen to them. So I got these little opportunities. And then every time I got an opportunity, I really just put my whole heart into it. And I really just saw it not as just a job or a thing to do, but as my spiritual calling. And I put my whole self into it. And I was given the ability to learn new skills and progress on a career path that I never could have imagined. A really incredible, really fun, like super amazing career path that completely aligned with my skill set and things that I had only ever dreamed of in the past. And I was able to advance year by year, and I was able to learn really practical skills about like how to be in the world and how to save money and manage money and build up my security and build up my abundance. And I read a lot of books and I listened to a lot of teachers to kind of keep pushing myself forward on this path. And then eventually I was able to use some of my resources to do things like going to these conferences that I like to go to, or taking a workshop here and there, or having just the money to buy more books, and to really dig into my passions and just follow my heart. So that's kind of a nutshell of like what has brought me here, and the reason I wanted to give you all that context today on the 1 year anniversary of Shocks Talks is because, like I said, I want to talk about out of body experiences and meditation, because now I'm at a point in my life where I have enough stability to be able to really dig deeper into my personal magic, esoteric practices, meditation practice, and consciousness studies. And I'm really making some beautiful progress. And what I've been learning is that there is a huge amount of imagination that is required to go down this path. So, this is a little surprising to me, or it was when I first started to realize this, but a lot of people in these communities who are doing these practices and these workshops that I've gone to are all catching on to this. And I'm going to give you an example from today. So, today is the full moon in Capricorn, and I decided to do one of my meditations. And my meditation practice is laying on the bed, putting on a blindfold, and putting on headphones and listening to binaural beats. I like to use the binaural beats to kind of help me to release any other distractions or sense data that might be coming in through my ears. And the blindfold helps me because if I get super relaxed, my eyes tend to kind of flutter open or just fall open. So I was listening to a binaural beat from Tom Campbell's collection. And just for anyone who doesn't know, a binaural beat is not really a beat like as in rhythm, but it's a tone where one tone plays in one ear and another tone plays in the other. And then they kind of come together to create a coherence pattern in your mind. So what it does is it helps to focus the brain activity. And it also creates like a bit of a white noise or a pink noise effect. So it's just a nice way to help certain types of people focus in meditation. And it helps a lot of people to go out of body. So I'm in my practice and I'm starting with a Robert Monroe technique of kind of putting all of your distractions in this energy repository box. So like thoughts about work, thoughts about stuff that's going on with my family, things with friends or whatever, like any little distractions that are lingering, any kind of tension in my body, any kind of residue, I just put it all in the box, put it all in the box. Oh, this thing I want to figure out by the end of next week, put it in the box. And then you close it. You close a heavy lid. And this is obviously a visualization. So you're using your imagination to do this activity already. And then you kind of turn away from that box and decide what you're doing next. And some people just kind of sit there and wait for something to happen. But I've found that most of the time, it's actually really good for me to start the process off by engaging my imagination and using my focus and my will to create for myself a visualization or a metaphor that feels beneficial to me. So today I started with some energy work, and I do really love energy work, and it is really real. And my energy work today was, going through and sending energy to all my chakras. I was initiating kind of this energy flow outward to all of the things in my immediate environment where I'm making myself into a conduit and allowing pure sort of divine life force energy to flow through me out into, my house, the things around me, the car, the dog, my family. I'm just sending energy out. All the birds who are always singing all around my house, who I love so much, I'm just sending energy to them. And and then I'm also simultaneously sending this energy into my body. And I immediately visualized every single cell of my body receiving the energy and like supercharging, and all the cells were just glowing with this bright white light. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to let go of my active mind, and I'm going to see what happens. I want to see if I just can float out of the body. So I started using an affirmation of like something very simple, like I now have a lucid projection, or I out of body now, or something like that. And I was doing that for a while, and it's a good meditation because you're concentrating on one thing, so that's already beneficial, but nothing was happening. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to go back into my sort of visionary practice, and I'm going to let myself have a journey. And I'm not going to tell you the whole journey here because it's super personal, but I had a really, really beautiful journey, and I just let my imagination flow. And what happens is you start off by kind of sending yourself somewhere with your mind, and then it kind of just carries you away. There's a point where, like, I feel this shift where I'm no longer actively thinking of what happens next, but stuff is just happening, which is similar to a dream state. And and it's really beautiful because the things that are happening are nourishing my soul, and they're filling me with so much joy and so much energy, and it feels so special and magical and personal. So this is something anyone can do, and it's so worthwhile in my mind, at least. And for my life, I feel like it's been such a fun treat to be able to do this type of thing. And another version of out of body experience, again, just like shifting data streams, is a certain kind of dream that can happen. So, in some of the workshops I've been taking recently, I've learned from people that it's very uncommon actually for people to just stay completely lucid and awake and transition into an out of body state. For a lot of people, they actually do fall asleep. And this is counter to what some people teach. So I was surprised to hear this because some teachers will say, make sure you stay awake, don't fall asleep, then you're just dreaming. But for certain lucid projectors, they're able to transition into a dream state by allowing themselves to fall asleep. And then, similar to waking up in a lucid dream, they become conscious in the dream, and then that becomes the launch pad for the out of body experience. So once they're conscious in the dream, then they can tell themselves, I want to go out of body now. And then they're in a more active participant role in that dream space. And I'm starting to realize that like out of body travel and dream travel, there's kind of an overlap. So different schools of thought have different ways of really breaking this down, but what I've found recently, the way that I see it in my mind, and this is what makes sense to me, is you have kind of three levels. So you have your typical dreaming state, which is very much an unconscious, subconscious driven dream state where you are along for the ride, and it's kind of almost like watching a movie in a way. Maybe it's a little hazy around the edges. There's not a lot of like ability to recall all the details, and it's very like muddy with whatever impressions you picked up throughout the day or the week, or things that are happening in your subconscious that are bubbling to the surface. And it just has a certain quality to it. And then you have your full other end of the spectrum, which could be considered a lucid projection or a lucid dream or an out of body state, depending on who you talk to. And on that end of the spectrum, you're actually in like these locations that tend to feel a lot more like real places on a certain level of reality. So there's like there's kind of this astral realm where you have these collections of consciousness entities that have created places that are similar to places on Earth, for example. And I go to these places a lot in my dreams, so I always call it like Dream San Francisco, or it's Dream LA or Dream New York. And you kind of know, you get a sense of where you are, but things aren't quite normal. And it's usually like the architecture is like a lot more maximal. There's a lot more detail, and things are really kind of like clustered up on top of each other, and there's just all kinds of people. And just like when you're out in the world, you're not just seeing your own projections, you're actually seeing all kinds of different people that you never would have imagined because they're just out there. And that's kind of a dream space that is a shared reality frame with other consciousness units. And you can have really real interactions in those places. And some people even claim to be able to meet up in those places. I have not had that experience yet, although I do think I've encountered people I know. But what I've learned from these classes is that almost all of us are projecting at night. We're going into out of body reality frames, but we're not conscious in them. So we're kind of like these zombies in a way. Like we're sort of subconsciously driven in those spaces. And then there's a place in between, which is kind of this crossover zone, which I think is a launch pad for out of body experiences. And that in between zone is, it's like you're kind of in a real astral realm, but your subconscious is having a heavy influence on your experience of it. So you're in this sort of in between zone. And again, I'm picking this up from what a lot of people have described and what I've been experiencing lately. So, for example, I did an out of body practice the other day where I laid down for my meditation, and something really interesting happened. I went out of body, but I was also not completely lucid at the same time. So, what I mean is, I walked out of my room, I thought I was awake. My house looked exactly the way that it does, and everything seemed as real. And I walked to the back door because I heard a voice out there, and I was very startled because no one should be coming to the back door of my house unannounced. And I proceeded to have this interaction with this person. And towards the end of that interaction, they were selling t shirts. It all felt very real. I didn't know I was dreaming. I thought everything was kind of off, but I didn't get to the point where I woke myself up in the dream. And then I looked in the backyard, and there was this huge disaster. A pipe had burst from deep underground, and it was huge, like the size of, a washing machine. Like a huge pipe was gushing water, and the whole backyard was like muddy and sunken in like this huge hole. And I just was shocked. And I went over, I saw this spigot, and I was going to try to turn off the water. But when I went to it, I fell into this muddy kind of sinkhole, and I was waist deep in the mud. And I was freaking out because it was a dangerous situation. I didn't know I was dreaming. I still thought this was all real. And I was starting to panic about, oh my God, how much money is this going to cost to fix? And like, who do you even call? And like, what is happening? I could see across the street through the cracks in the fence. I could see water gushing out across the street, cars driving through it, and water just splashing up. It was really, really real. And the person who was selling me t shirts came around awkwardly to just say, "You never paid for your shirt." And they grabbed, and I was like, "Be careful, you're going to fall in this mud." And they just kind of grabbed my card, swiped it in their little thing. And then they looked at me and they said, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." And they just walked away with no emotion. And I should have known. This is another moment where I should have realized, like, something isn't normal here. And that could have been considered by some a helper or a guide who was trying to help me remember this is a dream. Come on, you can launch out from here. But I didn't, and I just kept kind of thinking that my physical body was limited to the way that it is in this reality frame. And I kind of crawled my way out of the hole, and I was covered in this heavy wet mud, and the water was still gushing everywhere. And I just thought, oh my God, this is crazy. I got to go inside and like figure out my next step. So I took off all my muddy clothes, and I'm just walking in thinking I'm just going to go make a phone call or something. And then all of a sudden, boom, I fall in another hole, like a sinkhole. But this time I go down like 30 feet into the mud. and I'm down at the bottom of this muddy hole, and I'm just like, I'm having this realization, which I've had so many times in so many different dreams, like, you're dead. Like, you're dead. This is the end of your life. You can't get out of this hole, and nobody's coming, and that person is gone, and you can't scream. The mud is closing in around the top of your head. And it was so real. And I was kind of calm, but I was also pretty sad because I didn't want my life to end. And I thought to myself, I really hope my family doesn't feel any like suffering about this. I hope that they just get the idea that at the time of my death, I just left my body and I didn't have any suffering. That's what I was thinking about. I was like, I don't want them to feel sad. And I just was trying to slow my breath and hold as still as possible. And I was starting to think, oh God, I don't want to think about what it's going to feel like to breathe in this mud and just like basically suffocate. And then I got this little idea. It like came into my mind from somewhere, I don't know where, and the idea was like, maybe you can swim out like a fish in mud. Maybe you can just wiggle up this muddy, watery hole and get out. And the second I thought that, I didn't move my body, but I shot out of my body. And then I woke up back in my bed. So to me, this was like a training dream, and this is like a classic type of scenario when you start to practice these things like lucid projection or lucid dreaming or out of body. You'll have certain like little training modules that try to help you to gain that lucidity in the dream. And this one was trying to get me to realize there were a few different points throughout that dream I noticed where I was meant to realize this isn't a normal dream. Like, and you're not in normal reality. You're not awake. Things were happening that weren't normal, but I kept my conscious mind kept persisting in this in this normal default way of thinking about things. Like, I can only move in these certain ways because I'm bound by physical matter reality rules. And yeah, long story short, it was a great opportunity that maybe I missed kind of. I think I kind of got it at the last minute, which is why I fell in a second hole. Because it was like, okay, you got out of that other hole by climbing out, but you're not climbing out of this hole. So you're going to have to get creative here. And you're going to have to send your energy up and out, which is what I ended up doing. But I was helped. It wasn't like something that I just completely thought of. I was still stuck in the mindset of like, I need to swim out of this hole. So anyway, I've had some of the other classic out of body experiences recently too, like the vibrations in your body. I've had really loud sound where I'm doing my meditation and I hear almost like it sounds like an airplane is taking off, or like it's so loud and so intense that it's actually scary, and then it snaps me back into my body. So I don't think it ever has to be that way. I just think these are things I've learned about and heard about. And so now my body or my consciousness is kind of creating them for me. And in the end, I think I'm just going to have to find my own way, just like we all do. And we've talked about how certain remote viewers have made the comment that remote viewing should actually be called remote sensing, because not everyone is just seeing things in their mind's eye. Some people are smelling, some people are feeling, and some people are hearing and other ways of perceiving. So I've actually had a little bit of all of the different clairs, like clairaudience, clairsentience. I've had a little taste of a lot of them, and the feeling one is really strong for me. So, physical sensations that are happening even while I'm just laying completely still in my bed and I'm starting to feel things as if I'm moving around. This is an indication that maybe my astral body or my energy body, or whatever you want to call it, is starting to gain lucidity in some other realm. Definitely clairaudience, the sound one, is a big one for me where I will hear things. And this is classic. And this also happens, interestingly, to people who are studying UFO phenomena in certain hotspots. Before they see the craft and before they see any activity in the sky, sometimes there is something that seems a lot like poltergeist activity where they start to hear really strange sounds in their ear, in their mind's ear, really. And this happens quite frequently. So I think it all comes down to an expansion of consciousness that's trying to happen here on the earth at this time in reality, and it's happening to everyone eventually. And we're all kind of in the process of finding out what our way is going to be when it comes to interpreting this data that is beyond the limited subset of reality that we currently are primarily focused in. So, I think that's probably a good place to stop for today. Just a little taste of what I've been practicing and learning. There's a whole lot more, and I would love to hear from you about any practices that you're doing. I will recommend that journaling about your meditations and just carving out time to do your meditations, those are the top two things that have helped me to have these experiences. And the third thing would be obviously the learning component, which is just reading, watching, listening, attending workshops, or just talking to people who have had experiences, because the more you connect your consciousness to others who are doing these things, the easier it becomes, because we are telepathically linked and we are all linked in consciousness. So even just coming into contact with people who are already practicing and experiencing anomalous things is a great way to expedite the process for yourself. So hopefully watching Shock's Talks is part of that for you, and hopefully my stories can spark something or help you gain confidence in your own path forward, or give you a little bit of inspiration when it comes to just how wild and free this whole thing can be, and how much it's really about exploration and experimentation. There's no right or wrong way, and there's a lot to be gained. So, again, the things that you can actually gain from diving into these practices include greater peace, greater joy in your daily life, the ability to move forward on your path in physical matter reality in a more meaningful way, leveling up in your own life, whether it's in career or relationships or any personal passions or pursuits, and also just that feeling that you get when you visit nature of just nourishing and refreshing your soul, expanding beyond the limitations of your body and your current life existence form, your current unit of consciousness or life experience packet or whatever you want to call it, and just kind of tapping into that deeper knowing and awareness of your expansiveness and your connection to everything. It's really beautiful, and I hope you get into it and have some fun and report back. And I don't know what we'll talk about on the next episode, but now that I've made it through a year of doing this, I'm going to spend a little time just thinking about where we might want to go next. So if you have any ideas for me, requests, or things that you feel most excited about that you want me to research more or learn about and talk about, please let me know. Thank you so much for checking out Shock's Talks, and I'll see you next time.